Welcome everybody to our Changemakers Worldwide webinar. I'm really excited to share some awesome stories today with you all, or actually they'll be sharing the stories with you themselves, some of our great changemakers from around the world. And for folks that are new to Water Stories, I'm going to give just a super brief introduction to what Water Stories is and why we're here today. And then you guys will hear from these excellent speakers from Canada, Austria, the United Kingdom, the United States. We have a nice smattering from all over the world. So with Water Stories, we're really working to empower as many people as possible to implement water cycle restoration. And this is reversing drought, flood, and fire through partnership with nature. What this looks like on the ground is training people in in-person programs, in online programs, putting together films, videos, and stories. It's been really impactful to watch this community grow so far, so quickly, really represented all around the world already. And it's because it's people learning how to heal landscapes with water, how to work with the natural resources to create more springs, more water supplies, more healthy landscapes, more habitat, to move from this watershed death spiral we're currently experiencing, these cycles of flood, drought, and fire, to a full, healthy, and functioning water cycle. And so I'm really focused on helping people earn their living through healing the earth, something that all of these speakers here today are doing an excellent job of. And we have this training each year. It's open right now till next week. It closes on the 27th of March. That's a 6-month training to really empower the next generation of practitioners. We also have in-person workshops that we've done all over the place that a lot of these people have participated in as well. And if you want to learn more, waterstories.com is a great place to follow up on these topics. And so I'm really excited today to share some excellent stories from students of the course years past, and just people doing really excellent work all around the world, implementing water cycle restoration in their communities, in their locations. And so first up, we're going to have Tim Ormond from Asheville, North Carolina, sharing his story, who was actually just with us on our Water Sutra in India this past January.
Well, thank you, Zach. It's great to be with everybody. Happy equinox. I would like to talk with you about my experience with Water Stories, and specifically about working with the outer and inner landscapes. I'd say I'm one of Zach's non-traditional students in the fact that I was an engineer with almost 30 years experience running my own firm when I joined the course. And so as I was thinking about what to share, there was a quote, I think it's attributable to Carl Jung, who said, "The more personal we are willing to be, the more universal we become," this paradox. So I wanted to share some kind of personal things about my journey with water. And is it about 15 minutes, Zach, that we're aiming for?
Yeah, that would be great. Somewhere in that range. Doesn't matter exactly.
Okay. So I'm coming to you from the mountains of Asheville, North Carolina. These are not the mountains of Asheville, North Carolina. These are mountains in western Henan province in China. And in 2024, I had this opportunity to travel with this wandering Taoist group. And part of the journey was following in the footsteps of Lao Tzu. And it took us to a place called Hanggu Pass, where legend has it that Lao Tzu wrote the Tao Te Ching. And Zach knows that one of my favorite verses from the Tao Te Ching says this. I'll zoom in. This was here at the temple in Hanggu Pass. In one translation, "The best of humanity is like water, which benefits all things and does not contend with them. It flows into the places that others disdain, where it is in harmony with the way." And so this was written 2,500 years or so ago. And it's worth reflecting on, what water can teach us in this, in benefiting all things, and how it flows into these low places, which often sometimes people disdain. And so I was going to share a little bit about my early years. This was an image that looked something like me, not exactly me. But when I was a kid, I was always out in rainstorms, playing in the water, building channels, just being fascinated by water. And I think this kind of set my life path in a lot of ways. My early years had some twists and turns as well. Unbeknownst to me and my family, we lived kind of right across the street from this chemical plant that had been operating from the early 1900s, and it ended up contaminating our town's water supply just outside of Boston. And there were plumes that got into the groundwater. The nearby river was contaminated. A lot of this was not disclosed to the public. But it turns out the company was actually fined many times. And when the EPA's Superfund list originally came out in 1982, it was considered the 14th worst in the country. There were cancer clusters and other illnesses. And it turned out our family's home was right across the street. We could smell the smells, but we were drinking the contaminated water. And Patty Larkin wrote this song called Metal Drums about this story. Part of that, I think, led to my career in water. I was the first one in my extended family to go to college and earned a degree in civil and environmental engineering. And then I had a real interest in doing community water supply work. And so I did volunteer engineering work after my bachelor's degree in the Philippines, in Mindanao. And that was going to be my career path. I got a master's degree in civil and water resources engineering, and I focused my graduate research on developing countries and water supply. And I worked with this international engineering firm, and then I got my professional engineer's license, currently licensed in these various states. And then I had this, what you could call record scratch moment where at age 29, I was diagnosed with a rare neuroendocrine cancer diagnosis, and being told that the average life expectancy would be 2.5 years. And so you might imagine that kind of impacted me. I spent about a decade of my life working through that, trying to regain my health, and so, you know, this journey of water can take you into sometimes low places and unexpected places. And so for me, it brought me deeper with water as part of my journey. I ended up moving to Asheville, which is this beautiful town in the mountains. It's considered a healing destination for a lot of people. And so I landed here and started my own consulting firm. Originally, it was called Hydrocycle Engineering, then more recently called Blue Earth. And I've had a focus on water and ecological restoration, mostly urban environment. So I think, you know, Zach and I, we talk about this sometimes of the need in urban environments can be different than for rural environments in terms of design and permitting and regulations and that kind of thing. And currently focus on a lot of nonprofit, helping environmental nonprofits locally and regionally, and grant-funded projects. I'd gotten certified in permaculture design and serve in various capacities, volunteer capacities. In Asheville, I was elected chair of the Sustainability Advisory Committee, helping the city with issues related to environment and energy. And I'll talk about this a little bit later, but I'm currently serving as chair of the Infrastructure Recovery Board. We had a major natural disaster here in 2024. And I took the Water Stories core course in July of 2023. I guess it was on the earlier side of the course, and really had a deep experience with that, and want to share how that's impacted my life and my work. And so to talk a little bit about the course itself, I think a lot of people realize that it gives you, I think, an amazing grasp of the outer landscape, reading the landscape, all kinds of practices and homework to engage you with your watershed, with the land, understanding water flows, and a lot of hands-on requirements, building rain gardens and water bodies, creating community watershed action plans, learning about construction equipment, preparing project budgets. And I really felt, even from an engineering perspective, that this course really prepares you for a career in water, especially for those, and I think there are probably many who've enrolled in the course who did not have a career in water prior to coming to the course. So it really does an excellent job with that. But for me, one of the big things I got was working with the inner landscape. And I think the course does a tremendous job with the inner landscape as well. Really getting to know yourself, understanding your own water story, working on your relationship with the earth and her beings. Practices like this, a sit spot with each relation, and really going deeper in reflection and contemplation with what we're working with here, and the great honor it is to work with the earth and the water cycle and the land. Crafting your offering to the world and living your best life. So you can kind of see that I think the course really does a masterful job of bringing both of these elements together, the outer and the inner landscape. One of the excellent things the course did for me was really making the connections between water and climate. And I think for many people, including myself, we hear that climate is strictly a product of CO2 levels, and which actually can lead to a lot of disempowerment, of thinking, what can we actually do? Do I have to change my gas stove to an electric stove, and what kind of impact will that actually make? When you really look at the science of climate, it's really a story of water and what's happening with the land. And when you begin to see that, and you see the science behind it, you can see it becomes, for me, very empowering that we can make a real difference. So I was alluding to this, that some of you may, if you knew what happened in 2024 in Asheville was considered a climate haven, and we were beginning to actually receive climate refugees from other parts of the country, from California, people who were escaping wildfires. And then in September 2024, we had these very unusual events, 2 back-to-back storms, the second one being a hurricane, where a lot of the region within 3 days received 20 to 30 inches of rain, and it really devastated our city. Asheville is a small city of about 90,000, tucked away in the mountains, and we lost power for several weeks. And one thing that was really unexpected is we ended up losing the city's water supply. It washed out a water main and caused so much sediment in this pristine reservoir that basically for 2 months, 100,000 plus people didn't have any drinking water. So you really begin to, in a crisis like that, to understand the importance of water. These are some of the devastating after effects of the rivers and creeks. I think it was about 5,000 roads and bridges that were washed out, including private roads and driveways. And as I mentioned, I'm currently serving as the chair of the Infrastructure Recovery Board, so helping the city to plan its resources for the recovery, which is still going on today. We also have the issues with drought and wildfire. They're not as common as they are out west, but every few years or so, we do have these wildfires that happen in our forests. And over time, you can see these extremes have become greater and greater, both the flood and the drought cycles over the past 100+ years, and they continue to become more extreme. And so, the Water Stories course for me really helped me to integrate water and climate into my projects, and wanted to share some of my projects with you. These are just some current ones, and there's a lot more I could speak to. This one was a wetland restoration project. There was a film that was made. I made a connection through Water Stories with Apollo Saldana, who's also based in Asheville, a local filmmaker, and we collaborated on this documentary, which Water Stories has published. And if you haven't had a chance to see it, I'd highly recommend it. And I'm interviewed in that film as well. So this project was a transformation at a community college here of about an acre of asphalt, this underused parking lot, into a wetland education park, and practicing water cycle restoration as part of the design. As I mentioned, in urban projects, we often do have to go through detailed design process involving engineering and permitting, planting plans, sort of detailed hydraulics. And so working in an urban landscape is a bit different. I don't think it's for everyone, but it is an important niche because so much of our world does live in urban areas and developed areas. And then this is quite interesting. This was an unexpected part of the project too, that as we began excavating and uncovering the soil, we discovered that the soil itself ended up being contaminated. So there were truckloads of soil that had to be brought to a special site where they remediate contamination. And the project will be moving into phase 2. And the phase 2 will involve a permeable parking lot and a teaching area. And we'll be working on the design of that in the coming weeks and months. So this is just the before and after. Unpaving a parking lot and putting up a paradise. And there's also a webinar. If you want to sit through 2 hours of that, you can hear all of our Q&A, and that should be on Water Stories site as well. Another one of my recent projects, this was one of the many catastrophes during Hurricane Helene. Lake Susan and this pristine town of Montreat up in the mountains basically was devastated with all of the sediment, did a lot of damage to the stream. And my company and we worked on a restoration project for this. And this is what it looks like now. It includes some additional ecological features, a wetland shelf that's planted with native wetland vegetation and new fish habitat, as well as a restored stream. Another project of interest is a small eco-village that's currently in construction in West Asheville. The couple who's spearheading it have kind of put in their life savings, and they bought 2.5 acres to build 19 green homes. And they're really focusing on, I think, both the inner and the outer landscape and how they're conducting it. So I did the engineering and design using a water cycle restoration approach that exceeds normal stormwater type requirements. So there's 6 different water cycle restoration features kind of integrated throughout the site. What happens a lot these days, I think, especially with engineers who don't have this kind of background, is they'll just put these, plastic underground vaults to meet stormwater requirements, but there's so many better ways that you can meet these requirements by working with the natural landscape and water cycle. And so it's great when you can find a client who's aligned with you, as we did in this case. Another project that's in the design phase now, this is a town just north of Asheville called Weaverville, and they have this beloved, it's called the Main Street Nature Park. It's about 10 acres and has a watershed maybe of about 80 acres that flows through these two tributaries that then join together. And there are streams that are highly eroded and we're developing a restoration plan for the stream, as well as these stormwater wetland educational elements. If you look on the left, you'll see these red lines. Those are the pipes that are draining from this highly impervious area, these parking lots and adjacent streets. And so all of these will be put through these wetland ecosystems for treatment, water quality, water cycle restoration, as well as an amenity for park goers. And another exciting project that I'll just mention briefly, but I'm the lead author on a community guidebook on water cycle restoration. Our current title is Water Connects Us All, a community guidebook for restoring mountain watersheds. But it's going to have a lot of guidance, design guidelines, action plans, as well as some model policy templates that communities can use. And our hope is to really engage many different communities, including sort of the climate action community, in water cycle restoration in our region. And this will be published later this year, and be sure to let you all know. And then something that was really profound for me, I'm still trying to make sense of what happened exactly, but back in January, a good friend who lives in Bangalore, grew up there. I know him from Asheville, and I had planned a trip to visit him. I'd never been to India. So I booked this trip, and then a few weeks later, Zach in Water Stories announces this Water Sutra, and it just so happened to fit exactly within my existing trip. So I said, this must be for me, and I signed up. And so part of my India journey involved about 2 weeks in Rajasthan with Zach and 30 or so people from around the world, walking with Rajendra Singh, who's known as the Waterman of India, and his organization Tarun Bharat Sangh, which I think means Young India Movement. And this was one of the most remarkable experiences of my life. Was I've been working with water for 30 years, but here I saw something that I've never seen before, and it may not exist in many parts of the world. But you see this transformation of these former barren, dehydrated landscapes using community power, indigenous wisdom, and constructing these structures. In some cases, they're smaller. In some cases, they're massive, and basically rehydrating rivers, and not just rehydrating rivers and transforming ecosystems, but bringing water back to many thousands of villagers who never had reliable water before, transforming economies. And it's just astounding. It's breathtaking to take it all in. This is Rajendra Singh on the right. And he's one of these people, I don't know if there are many of them on the planet, but someone who's, like, to me, just a very transformed individual, that he's been working, as Lao Tzu said, in these low places, these places that maybe other people would disdain. But he's been working there for decades and seeing this transformation. And I don't even really have the words to put to it. I know Zach has made some films, and even that I don't think can convey what's actually happening there. And so for me, now what? I'm kind of left sometimes with more questions than answers. But one thing that we're having here locally is there are 3 of us from Asheville who went on this Rajasthan water journey. So we're offering this to our community. We've got a venue that fits about 300 people, and this will be on May 7th. We'll be showing the film and showing what has happened in Rajasthan, along with the lessons that it holds for our community. And so, in summary, these are my key takeaways from the Water Stories course. I thought it had an excellent foundation and practical skills for anyone who wants those and needs those. It really lays out some clear pathways to working with water. And one thing that was very helpful was the generous classroom hours that Zach offers. And he's kind of tireless too. He's like a Rajendra Singh in the making. And he'll stay until all the questions are answered. And then for me, like I said, a big part of this was the inner landscape. And we could let water be our teacher, maybe as Lao Tzu had envisioned. Go deeper with water and see where it leads you on your journey. And have some kind of practice every day. I do different practices like Qigong, but there are different kinds of meditation and ways of connecting with water. And don't be afraid of the low places that others disdain. And of course, travel with others and let us help one another. And then I'll leave it here. This was from our Rajasthan, one of the many turbans that we got in Rajasthan, and with my buddy Dan Casciato, also from Asheville. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tim. That was a really awesome example of what people who are already working professionally with water can really get from doing the course, from water cycle restoration in general. And I really love how we have kind of these mirrored but in reverse stories where you found the Tao and then that led you to all of these other things. And I can say I've met 2 Taoist masters in my life, and they're Rajendra Singh and Sepulzer. And I didn't know about the Tao at all. I discovered it way later. And as soon as I discovered it, I said, oh, this explains everything I've been observing for the past 10 years with these folks. And so I really love that kind of depth to the story there. So now we go back to the homeland where all of this stuff started way long ago in Austria with Gerhard Üblinger.
Okay. So this is actually the main picture for you all to see how I was looking when I was starting the whole thing with Water Stories. This image is made in the first year when I was still in the course, right next to this pond. That was how can you say, the masterpiece, you would call it in Austria. After you do a course, you do your masterpiece, and this was this pond. Which I did actually get at first. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, it's still there. It now looks like this. And I use it as a photo setting for me quite often, as you can see. Yeah, my name is Gerhard Üblinger. I live, as Zach said, in the Holy Land of water retention in a way. So senior Sepp Holzer is living quite around the corner. Actually, I never met him, but he's quite close, like 20 kilometers from my home place in southeast Austria. And living in Austria, knowing all the problems that Sepp Holzer faced, it was like, for me, it was quite challenging. So I went into this Water Stories course. Like, I would like to do this stuff. I saw it in Spain, I saw it in Portugal, I saw it in Austria, in Germany, wherever. But how can I do this? Because I don't have like this study background. I don't have all these exams that you need to do to get out into the field and get the the regulation stuff done. So this was my main topic during the course. Maybe you remember, Zach. And so for me, it was like, okay, I will do it. I will try it. And I don't know how. I know that I'm capable of. So this, I was quite sure in a way. I grew up on a farm. I had like my experience already building plant-based sewage treatment systems. So I knew how to ride an excavator. Actually, I never drove one that was bigger than 3 tons. So really, I bow to Kurtis and my colleague before that you do it on the excavator yourself. I'm really, I bow for you. I'm just out in the field commanding the excavators around. So you would see later some pictures. Sometimes I even have like 2 excavators running on site to make my presence viable, I would say. If I'm there and there's only 1 excavator, usually I'm just waiting half of the time for the excavator to do the things. So this season I really started to get into projects, 2 excavators at the time. And then I'm really worth being there. And also I found out that driving excavators is something that looks really fun to me. There are people that are better in it, and more experience. To have a driver that did nothing else in his life but 40 years of excavator driving, it's such a gift. And luckily there's quite some of these guys around that also quite know how to do this stuff. This is the luck that I have living in this holy land, that there are people that have experience. And I will even tell you a bit more about this. So as I said, I was a carpenter. I studied social work. And then I fell over that process structures in Portugal. I picked like tech and I was impressed. And I thought, nice thing to do in the southwest of Europe, but in Austria, we don't need this stuff. And bit by bit, also climate change helped the things are changing. And I really see the point of doing what I saw in Spain now here in Austria. And so the years passed by, and in the early 2020s, I started really going on to it. So in the eco-village community I live in, we started working with agroforestry. I built this pond while doing the core course. And then from there, the path that continued was kind of making me something like a killer agroforestry consultant for farms, which was not on my intention at all at the beginning. I like the ponds. I like this idea of creating something recreational and useful for the water cycle. But it turned out that my farming background and the needs in the area where we have a very highly valuable arable lands, that the needs are very much about farming. So I ended up being with the farmers. So this is the process for the last 6 years, and now I will guide you through the next, like what I'm doing actually and how I got there. So the start, after doing the core course, I had this bunch of people there on the picture. It's Julian, Leandra, me, and Anna. It's the first picture we ever made when we met, and we said, okay, we are in the topic with our hearts. We want to get the topic forward. We just team up and create a website and offer whatever we can. And this is what we did. We constantly develop things. We are living spread out all over the German-speaking countries. So we are not like neighbors. We have drive hours to meet each other. But around this team, slowly, there is like a network growing. So we are like this mycelium where people come and and attach and say, hey, can you help us here? Yeah, it's slowly growing. But the funny thing was for me, Zach, you invited us to show what we did. Just in the moment where we just finished our website, and yeah, let's use the chance. Let's go out, use this webinar that you offered us, and show whatever we did and want to do. And so we did this like 2 years ago. And just like 2 days later, I got a call from a person that is working in the Austrian Ministry of Agro by English. You have to discuss. I'm a bit bad in talking English the last month. So there was a guy calling me from a ministry and saying, hey, you are down there in this area. We have a project down there. And the things that you were showing are the things that we need. Do you want to work with us? So, and I took this call and I was like, oh, this is how it works. So people call you after a webinar. And okay, I said yes. It took some weeks, and from there on, life changed very fast. So here you can see one of the biggest projects that I did in this project that I was offered. It's called Land for Climate. It's an EU-funded project. The aim of the project is to improve the water quality in rivers by improving our water holding capacity and of the land around the rivers. So actually, a ministry that is responsible for our rivers is paying for the things that we are doing on the farming land, which is a novum in Austria, and which also creates funny situations because the expertise doesn't really fit. And we had a lot of talks to just find out how to get these things together. How is the structures that we offer, water retention on the land, how is it supported to the river and the other way around? And also we had a huge wave of interest from farmers that were saying, hey, you have this project. I know that there is a lot of funds coming with it. I want to experiment on my land. Way more than we had money in this project available. And there is this list, and I hope we and I will finally be able to serve all the people that are interested. So I always had this idea of no, there is no interest in what we learned. Austria is not yet ready, but it's actually the other way around. There is so much interest in this work. There is a bit of a bottleneck in funding and finances, yes, but the interest is there. Yes, and I got this offer. And I knew, okay, these other folks that I'm working with, they are in Germany. I need local partners for this local work. So I called another person I knew from before, who himself lived in Spain and was working for another organization that is called Humus Plus. And he and his organization were pioneering the combination of agroforestry and keyline water management in Austria since several years. So for me, it was like, okay, now we have to come together. And we talked, and it was after some minutes, we were quite clear. I will join their team. We will go into this project together. There is this expertise in agroforestry, which they made me enthusiastic about it in the process. There is my expertise in water. There is our common background in farming. There are all these farms in this area that are already inside this network of this company. And so we started working on this project, which is now running for another year. And then I will see what comes next. So now I'm working on the EU funds, which is a very privileged situation. And we are just in the process of elaborating an offer for farmers that is really viable to them. Also, where they get in a way paid for the kind of water retention they do, for the carbon removal that they do. So we really try to get a holistic approach in this company to make a viable business case of ecological works. So, and this picture is one that I'll show you more later of one project, and you can see how much organizations are involved in this project. And so I also found out that doing water bodies is one thing, and that being out in the field is one thing, and there's another thing that is bureaucracy. And not only like regulations, which we have to face, which is way more easy than I thought, but also like all this funding and how to name the things to make then the funders satisfied with what you're doing. I could write a book about it. So, but before I go more into this, I would like to give you a short idea why I love the combination of waterworks and trees so much. Back in the core course, we were talking so much about the small water cycle, and also the whole conversation in our sector. It's about the small water cycle. It's so important that we hold back water. And it's also clear that earthworks and water bodies are very cool. For me, especially if you can swim in them, I love it. But as I'm a descendant of farmers, I also was looking the whole time for a system that we can really integrate into agricultural land. So we don't only work in property and real estate development and with idealistic people, but also with people that have to live from the produce that they do on their land. So how to combine agriculture, climate, and water cycle? This is the question that started really, started during my nights. And as many, I came to the conclusion that it's best to improve the water holding capacity. Of course, starting from the soils, but also using structures and enhance plant growth in the area. So in my area, we have a lot of arable land. So it's a long talk to farmers to say, okay, keep it green the whole year. And it's not always possible, and it's not always easy for them to go this way. So there's another thing that is clear to create maximum evapotranspiration. This is trees. And if you have a look on this picture, you can see how easy it is to keep water next to the feature that is evaporating the water, to really making this water cycle full. And this is what I love so much about these key-line structures that I do now. They keep the water right there where it's needed, right in front of the feet of the trees, which are just pumping them into the atmosphere. And they are creating a good microclimate, but they are also contributing to the whole climate process. And when I saw this and I realized this, I became a bit more distant to building bigger water bodies and to really trying to spread it out all over the land. So maybe I can have a talk about this later, how your development is with these different features. Really curious about it. So, but this, when you see in this picture, is not just a simple swale. It's a bit more elaborated and a bit more fancy. So first, what you can see and what farmers also like about it is it's designed in a way that you can mow the whole thing with the tractor. So as in permaculture swales very often bring a lot of handwork, and farmers don't like this. We had to come up with a different design, which was there before. It's not my invention, but I found it useful and I use it. For us water people, I think it's more important to understand that the berm of this swale is completely level to contour. So this swale is not steering water somewhere. It's just filling up, and when it's full, it's overflowing. The whole length of. So this water that is concentrating in the landscape flows into this swale. It spreads out the whole length of the swale, and then it overflows as a thin sheet of water. And then it flows down the field, and it doesn't really matter if this field is plowed or if there is plants on. There is hardly any erosion. And this is the thing that people love in this country that I'm living, because here we have so much clay that whenever soil gets washed away, it's a mud, a festival on the road. So holding back erosion is the most important thing for the rivers to keep them healthy, and it's also the most important thing for the farmers to have a good neighbor, to have a good relationship with their neighbor, and also to have good harvests. And these tractors, they are amazing, well working for this. And one thing though is, like with every swale, they are great. They are super, super perfect combined with water pumps. Actually, I think even better than swales with a gradient, because I use these swales as an inflow to a water body, as an outflow to a water body, even as an emergency spillway, and as a sediment trap as well. So, but whatever happens in this structure, and the water body is next to it, it's connected to it, and it's way cheaper to build as I have this more elaborate swale. Yeah. So, and the thing that I like most about this kind of swale, it doesn't really need a permit in Austria, not even in Austria. So the argument that we bring is, hey, it's like 2 times plowing. Every farmer plows, and if it's like 2 times plowing, that cannot be a problem. We just create a step that's like 40, 50 centimeters high. Yes, it's holding water, but it's not guiding the water somewhere else. It's water staying in place. This is what you want. Yes? Yes. And then we are continuing it. It's hardly a problem. And also for me, a solution for this big issue that I had during the course, that how can I get around the permits? And now as we're working with this system, I find out that whenever people understand it, going the next step to say, okay, and now we are doing a water plant body attached to it. It's interesting how the responsible people in the regulation, how many possibilities they find to say, oh no, this doesn't need it. It's okay, you can do it. There is so many possibilities. Whenever it's understood how impactful the work is, I couldn't imagine this back then. I really want to empower people to find their story and to find the use of what you're doing. And there are people out there that are understanding what you're doing. It's not as difficult as I thought. It's way easier. So now I would like to go back to this picture that you saw before from this 10 hectares field, like the drone shot that you saw before, to explain a bit what I'm doing when I'm planning a system like this. So first, I'm working a lot with QGIS because we have such good data here in Austria and also in Germany and Switzerland. It's so easy to get good data. So I can just download some aerial images. I can download even these features that you see where water is flowing down. I can create contours. It takes me about half an hour to create this whole map and to know, this is the situation here, and mostly it's very accurate. So this is also something that we are very lucky in Austria. And from there, I just think, okay, well, how is it now? How is it now? It's like, okay, the farmer uses it in stripes. He has like a certain distance that he likes with his machinery, and that is also good for erosion prevention. Oh, there are a lot of features, like here is electrical power line. There are also invisible features in this field, for example, like a gas pipeline. And after finding out all these stuff, I go the next step and I try to integrate these key line structures, integrating them in a way that, like, when the farmer sits on a tractor, he wants to go straight forward and he doesn't want to turn around quite often. He doesn't want to stop. He just wants to go there and back and there and back. And if it's straight, it's easier. If it has some curves, it's a bit more challenging, yes. But the most important thing is that it's a long way down and a long way back. So when I do designs, I try to even make the long way down longer for the farmer, so that it's more practical for him. And in some fields, like here, you can see it. When you follow the contours, you get a different shape of the parcels, and you create this longer way down and the longer way back. So it's even sometimes more effective for the farmer to go these curves than to go back and forth the short way like he did before. So, as you can see, we tried to, like, in the bottom is the top of the ridge, and where the house is, next to the house is a small creek that is taking all the water. So we try to really start in the very top and harvest all the water that is flowing down, bringing it down to the ridges where we create small infiltration basins also. And we decide where are we allowing this water to overflow the swale. So it's not everywhere, because we want to steer the water there where it's needed. So we try to get it out to the ridge. We try to get it away from the places where it's wet anyway, and we try to spread it as wide as possible. And then you get a design like this. There are some parts of the parcels that are not so practical for using afterwards. So farmers always have to compromise. But in this case, the farmer has this funny situation that at least the area that he is farming, he has less turnarounds than before. And he has a system that is capable to take, when it's empty, to take 600 cubic meters of water, which is not much in 10 hectares. And really hard rain can create 2,000 to 3,000 cubic meters of water within half an hour. But this system is able to take it and to safely guide it down the hill. There is no erosion coming out in the bottom of the hill. The farmer could even work more aggressive now and could work less regenerative, and we still would have less problems. So. And in the bottom, there's a small permanent water body. You will also see how it works. And after this, we plant the berm trees. So this is something quite common. There's different plantations. So next to the house, often we use like fruit trees, a bit further away, but in a good reach, like chestnuts we have here, and the rest is fiber trees and trees that they create energy from them. So, and here you can see also the gas pipeline going through. Yeah. So all these structures are aligned. We have this key line structure that is practical for the farmer to mow, but still it uses 5 to 15% of the field, of the area. But it's productive because there are the trees. And this combination is interesting for the farmers. The implementation is costly, more costly than just farming. This is true, but it has a return for the farmer himself within a time period of 20 to 40 years, depending on the trees. But for the whole economy of the state, this system replaces within few years. So now when I do my research, it says between 3 to 6 years. If we would put this on all the farms we have, the devastation that is not taking place via floods, via lost fertilizers, via lost soils, would repay this within few years. So there's a very clear use case. There's a very clear business case in it. It's just a question: how can we reach the people doing it, and how can we find funding? Because most of the positive effects is actually for the people living downstream. It's not for the farmer. The farmer has like a quarter of a positive effect. The economy really huge. The most of the effects are for the villagers down there. So now I have a small video just showing you how it looks like when we fly over this. I really got infected flying drones because in the scale that we are allowed to work here in this project, you need drones to just be able to make a picture of what we are doing. And so I learned flying drones, and I fly a lot, I fly around quite a lot. So you see these several steps of swales that we have, and the plantations on the road. And in the bottom, the last swale is bringing together the water and filling quite a deep pond, and has its spillway. And the last thing, like, if there is an excess water, like an excess rain event, and there's too much water, before it was flowing down there, and it was kind of destroying the whole roadway and also the creek down there. So we were responsible until here. We couldn't work further. So we said, okay, we do a lot. We have a safe spillway until here, and the destruction that is happening down there, we cannot work with it. To do it perfectly, we would have to go down there and also rearrange it. It was possible. What did I get with Humus Plus as well? I got a colleague who was directly working with SEP also. He was out there with me doing this pond, which is like it was quite high dam to build. He was also out there doing the talks with regulators. So for this pond, we didn't need any regulation. We didn't have any permits. Everything was fine for everybody involved. We were allowed to build it, and we built it together. And for me, it was such a gift to have this person next to me, taking the soil into the hand and saying, "You mix this with this, and then it's perfect." And then there was this excavator driver, 65 years old. He did so many pounds, and he was like, I do it. And for me, the biggest learning in this project also was, like, also referring to the presentations we had before, I love using big machines. Not because I like big machines, they are actually quite loud, but they can stand in one place and they can do the whole thing. So this machine was just standing in the middle of this pond, and it was doing everything from without even moving around. It was like seeing this again and again and again, how impressive 20 plus tons excavators are, how effective eliminated my reach to drive an excavator. Because I know this scale of skills I cannot handle, and it's so effective. Also, maybe also to say, for the implementation of everything that you saw here, we had 1 week 20-ton excavator and 2.5 weeks 9-ton excavator. So after 2.5 weeks, we were gone from the property. And this is also something that is very important for me, because I have so many projects running in a short period of time. As this EU-funded project is limited in its timing, we have to be very fast. And what I like is I can be out there. I can really go with my nerdy things. I can do them. But as these machines and the people involved are really experienced, it can be very fast and we can be very effective in implementing this 10-hectare project. So I will now be a bit faster. So then there's another one that I would like to show. Like maybe you remember we had this 4 years ago already in a Q&A when I asked you if it's possible to build a pond down there. We did the test slides while we were doing this project, and I think we will do it maybe next year. So in this project, we had the situation that water is coming down here from 10 hectares of fields above. You see the erosion gully that is coming here, and it's entering this agrotourist area, a farm, which its property is like around here. And they had a mudslide coming in. There was a heavy rain. We had this mudslide coming in, rushing through here. And here on this small ridge, they had a drought situation that they couldn't plant fruit trees because they were all dying in sun. So the aim now was to get this excess water to where it's needed. So also back then when we talked to build a pond here, it wasn't possible because all the water needs to rush through here. If you don't get rid of this water, building this pond, it would need a spillway so big that there wouldn't be a lot of space for the pond itself. So now we went to this approach. We say, okay, we catch the water here in the sediment cut, we divert it, one swale that goes out here, and the excess goes down here in another small basin, and the excess again fills here the whole swale, and in the end another small basin. And if this one overflows, like if the top, do you see my cursor?
We are not seeing your cursor.
Oh, okay, so I have to explain a bit differently. Sorry. So we will I will just start the video, and then you will see how the water is going to flow in the future. So it's coming in, going down where the blue excavator is, and then it's diverted to the left to the first swale that is actually built in this moment, and it's diverted down and out to the ridge, and all this way it's allowed to overflow the swale. And as you can see, it was a lot of small parcels. They were actually arable land before, so there was a lot of ditches and stuff. So we had to completely readjust also the area in between the swales so that the new farming, the new way of using the tractor in this area will be very efficient. Also here, this whole system, let's go back again. This whole system was built within 4 days. So also here we tried really be fast and get in and out to also don't disturb this agrotourist the season of them. So, and here there's another flight just to make visible how the swales look after implementation. So we now fly along this contour level swale. As you can see, there are marks for the digger to drill the holes on the berm. And everything you see, it's like cut, loamy topsoil. And now we enter this area where the water gets diverted. So we have like 2 pipes that are coming from this silt flat. One is going as an excess overflow to the left. The other one is filling this topsoil. Right. So this is the projects, the big scope projects that I do. And it's also a webinar for people that are trying to understand if the core-cross is the right thing for them. I couldn't imagine doing like a project in this scope so fast. So for me, it also was like I need to get into this and there was a lot of learning on the way. The learning curve was very steep in the last 4 years. Like whenever I wake up in the night, I have something to think about. So if you don't want to have it that steep, I can understand it. And I just had this luck and I had to take. Before I came into this lucky situation, I was also working with a different skill that I brought from my past. I was working with kids before. And so I decided I want to also do something else that is more on the social level and that is also teaching people what we need in terms of water and land use. And so I started like dam building workshops with school children. Most of the pictures come from school that my son went into. So I had a perfect situation. The land is ours, where the creek is flowing through, and I had the pupils that were my dummies to test whatever I did the experiment with, and they loved it. They just loved it. So here we took, we have a small sawmill in the neighborhood, so we took the rest of the sawmill and we just built something somehow into the river, into this creek, and the children had big fun. Unfortunately, I don't have a picture of how it looked like after first strong rain, because all these structures were washed away. So after seeing this, the class came again. We said, okay, we need to do something else. Like this doesn't work. And then we continued and we started building this small scale beaver dam looks, just putting piles into the ground and weaving willow branches into it, just trying to find out, well, what is happening if you do it like this? Will it be washed away as well? So we have this really little creek. You can see here, this is when it's dry or it's even without water. And this is how it looks like when it rains. So we have like 50 hectares of farming land on top of it. And when it rains, it waters down the soils of almost 30 hectares of arable land. And as you can see, we could withstand the whole thing. But the children were coming in the rain with me, like down there. They wanted to see how it works. I have another picture, but I forgot where it is, so I couldn't bring it. And this is how it looked afterwards. You can see the mud in the back. So we had like, I don't know how many tons of soil that were lying in the back. The children were like stepping through with their feet, getting stuck, losing their boots in the mud. And so we could really understand together, okay, this is what is happening when it's raining and we have erosion. Soil is washed away. Usually we don't see it, but here you can see it, what is happening. The structure is still there. It's still doing its job. And the very interesting thing is that it clogged more and more. So now we have like kind of a wetland situation in the back of the structure. So there is this mud and there's a different vegetation starting from scratch. And so we build more and more of them. And whenever I go there, sometimes I see children coming around the corner, curious what has happened to their dam. But not only them, also I started showing this thing to people from the local government, like the mayor and stuff. And them seeing what happens there and how simple solutions can be made us coming up with a project together that we want to work with the landowners above this situation to reduce their erosion and also to retain more water. So this actually school project was the start for a whole project in this whole watershed that is with another branch of this creek, 120 hectares big. So we are working now with 40 landowners and getting funding for the process of talking to them and making them understand what they could do to improve this. And we came from just putting some sticks into the mud with children. So sometimes also going somewhere brings you somewhere else. So now I'm involved in a community developing project, which I hardly dared think about before, just by playing with chicken. Yes, and there would be so much more to talk, which I skipped now. I again want to thank you, Zach, that we have again the possibility, or in this case me, that I have the possibility again to talk here. And also to my team from Hunting Plus for this great chance to do this big scale work, and also to Hannele and Julian for being my mates in the last 4 or 5 years. Thank you out there. And also I hope you are, whenever you're interested in doing the core course, just do it. Understand that the journey only starts then, but it will be a funny journey. And really go for it if you're human. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Gerhard. And I shared the links to those websites as well as Gerhard's LinkedIn. And really appreciate just how much was covered in that presentation. One of the things I'm always saying is the only recipe is a recipe for disaster, and you really have to fine tune and tailor what you're doing to where you're doing. And I just was loving hearing you talk about, this is basically just plowing twice. Why can't we do this? And, you just have to find the right threads to pull. And I think one of the big things is once you get started, Sepp always says, do something and something happens. And it just leads you logically from one step into the next. And I love that story you shared at the end of how the dam that you built with kids is now opening the door to changing public policy and working in public spaces. And that's really powerful. So now we're going to go back across the pond once again to Western Canada, where Kurtis Howes is doing some really excellent work there.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me. It's nice to be here. And I'll share my screen. Yeah, so hi, my name's Kurtis Howes, and I own Rowan Land and Water. And yeah, we're a regenerative landscape design and water cycle restoration company based in Western Canada. I live on Vancouver Island in BC, so primarily service this area, and potentially elsewhere soon enough. So yeah, I'm just going to show you some projects that I've done over the last few years before I took the water stories course and then after. And yeah, I'll get started. So first off, how did I get here? I grew up on the edge of Edmonton, next to the North Saskatchewan River, and my backyard was a ravine, which I spent a ton of time in with my friends. And at the bottom of the ravine, there was a beaver pond that had lodges and muskrats and trails all throughout. We'd spend days down there, and it was a really cool backdrop to have because I think it helps set a subconscious interest in water and just wanting to finding comfort in it, but also wanting to know more about it, and eventually wanting to work with it as well. And my parents always gardened, and my dad always had ponds in our backyards. So I think that kind of set the stage too for having an interest in water. And we helped him build these over time as well. And so ever since a young age, I've had some experience, I guess, which is good. And then over time, I've taken permaculture design certificate and other ecological design courses, but which were great. And they were good at kind of looking at the larger framework or systems of a landscape, but I felt they were always missing the nuances of how to effectively work with water. There was always a missing link there, because then when I would consult with people or look at a landscape after taking those courses alone, I had an idea, but it never felt I never felt fully confident in how to assess the water, which is one of the first things you'd want to look at if you're even doing an assessment. It's so foundational, and ultimately, like, it is the baseline for the rest of your decision making. So since the core course, though, it helped fill that gap, which is really nice because it just like provided me with the confidence of how to look at a landscape in relation to water. And like Zach taught really, really awesome, deeper on-site assessment skills, how to read land more effectively, how to tune into the land to read it effectively, just how to use all of your senses. And what I liked about it a lot was just like how in person it was. It wasn't just online or looking at a map, for example. It was very much like go into the landscape, feel it, sense it, and use your eye and see what you can see, right? And that was awesome just to help, I guess, boost the amount of or my ability to see the land and like how water flows, and therefore then take that skill set and apply it to the projects thereafter. So and the course also shed light on the importance of or for one, the construction process of how to actually construct water bodies from beginning to end, which is really nice too, because it took a lot of the guesswork out and offered a lot of clarity on how to do proper key construction and where to also place water bodies so they're most effective. And it also shed light on the importance of policy and how it can get in the way. Like there's a lot of restrictions on what's possible in the world right now in terms of how one can utilize or implement water cycle restoration features like water bodies, and just like that's also a key foundational thing to work on, is always working on policy, changing law, rules, etc., to let people actually implement more water systems for restoration. So let's start back. I took a road trip to Edmonton a couple years ago in the summer, and so I actually went to the ravine I used to play in, and that's my friend Jeff, who I grew up with, and my son Aya, and we went down to the beaver ponds, and I call Aya Tim, but anyway, he got to see it. And so this is where Jeff and I used to play. And it was just really cool to see it again, all the trails around and stuff like that. I don't remember there being so much cattail back in the day, but I guess there is nowadays. So, just checking out the water edge. And then it was neat too, because it's one thing I miss about living in Alberta is the amount of thunderstorms you get. And so we were just watching a thunderstorm roll in here. It was really neat. And so this was a cool moment for me because I have my childhood friend on the right, and then I have my son on the left. And I feel like it's sort of the next generation of people coming up, because I'm always teaching Aya about water cycle restoration, the water cycle, the importance of having water in the land, starting small, like having many different systems that can link together to change regional temperature and so on and so forth. So, and he loves it. He soaks it up. So, as I was going through Alberta, I came across lots of cool plants. This was Shepherdea, or silver buffalo berry, and it's one that I've read about a lot and would like to implement in projects here, but I feel like it's too wet for it here. So has tons of cool benefits. Edible, medicinal, fixes nitrogen, forms thickets, then habitats, and you can use it for food and jellies, and you can make like a ice cream type substance with it. This is a thicket of the Shepherdea, and then there's a mountain ash or a rowan tree as well there for orange berries. So just, I love this kind of feral, windbreak type environment and plant systems. Yeah, that's just like totally nerd out on them when I see them. One thing that's cool too about like the upper half and north mostly in Alberta is there are so many ponds and marshes and wetlands. It's just like dotted. So this is a lot of what I saw as a kid too. And it's just beautiful land, you know, rolling hills, big sky and lots of water. So lots of mosquitoes too, but it's okay. It comes with the territory. And here's another water body I saw on my way back. This is in the Okanagan, and I had never seen a salt flat before. And so they do exist. I don't know like exactly what this is or if it has a name. I tried to find it online. The closest thing I could find was the Spotted Lakes in Osoyoos, this is around. And so I don't think this is that exact ecosystem, but it's very similar. So you need to explore this more in the future. So on to some projects. Yeah, so I did a project for BC Hydro a few years ago on Salt Spring Island, and we just did a landscape renovation. And so here is a design for that. And this was the first project I started to implement water systems into. And so I just started small, and you can see there is a like a small rain garden on the right, and a bunch of native plants within that to try to build up the ecology of the area. And here's an example of the finished product minus it filling up. And so in the wintertime, this does fill up from like surface water and groundwater, which is really cool. And then it goes back down. So just like a little vernal pool for the office building there. Moving on, this is closer to my place. This is a terrace and agroforestry system design I did for a local biodynamic farm that has a cafe and a CSA as well. And so in 2023, they were forced to stop using their water because of some licensing issues. And eventually by the end of that year, they were able to use their water again, but they were told to stop within, or like in summertime when they needed it the most. And so I read about this in the paper and decided that, like, you know, I figured I could help them try to catch and store water on the land instead. So I did a design, and this is actually while I was taking the core course. And so I was using a lot of what I learned in the course for this design itself. And the whole idea here is to have, because they have a large unused slope that goes from where those buildings are to like the bottom of the design area there. And so I was thinking that you could terrace that and have access points on the terrace, and then have like an agroforestry system as well, that they could, one, like tour the farm through the access points for customers of the cafe, and have like a demonstration and education type setting for those people, and also have value-added products from like the apple and pear system that they could, for example, make jams and jellies with, or pies or what have you. And so just have more on-farm products for them to sell in the cafe. This is the other half of that. And yeah, and I also recommended having like a hazelnut and honey locust coppice agroforestry system too, that they could utilize the wood for building fence posts or other structures, or to use the hazel to have as tree fodder for any livestock that they have. After this, they applied for a grant to do a dugout on site because they haven't installed the terrace system I've designed for them, but they have installed this dugout. So at the time, or after I did the design, they applied for a grant, and which they got. And so I did the specs for the dugout for them. And so it's a lined basin. Yeah, and it's totally full of water now, so they can use it to irrigate their crops in the summer. And hopefully in the future they'll implement the terrace system that I've designed as well. It's just more of a close-up for that. So moving on, this is a housing development project that I've worked on. This has since been constructed a lot more. Like there's still some spaces that haven't been built yet, but there are a lot more houses in here now. And so I did a design for a little kind of entrance corner space, and used primarily native species. Certainly like boosted a lot of the beautification factor using magnolia and flowers and stuff like that too. Anywhere I can, I always try to incorporate some sort of water body, even if it's a small retention basin or rain garden. So I have that listed in this design, but I find it's sometimes hard to convince people to implement these things if they already have a set idea or don't have an initial interest in wanting a little water body, because sometimes they're like, what's the point, right? And so a big part of what I do too is always like talking to people about the importance of having even small little catchment systems and the amount of habitat it can create, let alone like the rehydration ability that they have as well. So yeah, design this. Unfortunately, they did not go for the rain gardens, but it's okay. We still put in the planting scheme, and so I think it turned out pretty nice. One thing about the design work I do is that it's not essential for doing water body work, but it's nice to do landscape work, and it can certainly be applied to water body work, but it gives me plant counts. Like I can go through the design and see exactly how many plants I have on that, and then because it's all to scale too, it's easy to estimate like what I need for material in terms of bringing plants in the plant. So it's one benefit. Yeah, so this is along the entrance way in, and so this is planting of that, which I think turned out really nice as well. And then from there, I started doing more water-based work as like a primary service. And so I worked on a property here for a lady that has this strip of land. It's about 3 acres, and the back field on the right there is this lowland flat field that has a really high water table because the surrounding area, it all drains into this. And so on the bottom right there, you can see that there's already a lot of sedge and marsh-like habitat, and there's willow, and there's trembling aspen and stuff like that, which are all indicative of wet soils and lands. So it was challenging to work on this site because, for one, it was flat, and sometimes I find hard to decide what to do because there's less like complexity in the landscape to base your decisions off of. And also the water table was so high that it was kind of like I had to wrap my head around thinking about how to possibly cultivate this. And so her land drains into Somenos here. So I figured, okay, well, in order to tap into this land at all, like we're gonna have to raise or create like planting mounds to keep the root zone out of saturated soils. You can see here how high the water table is, and also like how peaty the soil is as well. So that was really interesting to see as well, because I don't usually see that around here. Yeah, and so I designed this Chinampa style food forest, which she wanted, and also some more like row planting or agroforestry type systems. And so there are those blue lines on the right are all like, they would be the channels to excavate to hold water and slowly but surely drain it into that marsh land already. But there's so much in the winter, it would just be standing water anyway. And then to take that excavated material and use it as the mounds to plant into to keep the roots out of the water. So, and in the back right there's a lot of I used a lot of plant species that can handle a bit more inundation, like crabapple, for example, that we could graft more palatable or like larger cultivars of apple onto. So I could leverage the use of a wild apple species and then graft a more edible species onto that. So yeah, this was fun. This has been it thus far. And we've planned to make this sort of a multi-year project. So looking forward to potentially installing this system in the future. Yeah, and then here's some excavating work I've done. This is a small like filtration system that is fed water from a building nearby, and I put this in as like this little rock check dam just to hold the water back, to filter the water before it enters a pond further downhill. And then mulched the edge, seeded it, planted conifers and alder and stuff like that to help shade the water to keep it cooler and build up the soil as well. So that was fun. It's another photo there. And then here is a swale and tear system I worked on for a woman. So this project started out with they hired someone to do the placing of the mounds, but they actually weren't fully on contour. So I went in and shot the site with my laser level and saw that a lot of these mounds were off a bit, sometimes up to a couple feet. So I just fixed that by marking them out and then recutting each little channel before the mound actually on contour, so it would hold water level and hold it better and not let it run off so quickly. And then the I used the overburden on the top of the mounds, as well as I built up the actual roadways, which you can see on the left there, because they were quite sloped before. So I wanted to level them out and create more of a terrace system and an access point for each sort of like swale mound thing. So here's some photos. One of the biggest things on this site was seeing how tight the space was. Because I didn't place them initially, like I saw the importance in planning ahead and always in like giving yourself enough room for access, especially if you're going to use equipment. Because some of these, in between some of these mounds was so tight, and I wasn't able to do like a very big channel before the mound, and it became frustrating at times, and I just realized the importance in planning ahead and giving yourself ample space if you have it. Here's one of the channels after rain, and some of the soil and manure that we were adding to these mounds as well to plant into. And yeah, so Sierra, they designed this system that I was helping to fix up a bit. And here are the spillways for each of these channels as well. And so let's just cut in a level sill and then ran the spillways down alongside the road. And so my portion of the project ended here, but I let them know to fill these up with rock to keep the spillways from eroding, and also to give them somewhere to access or to drive or walk across as well. So yeah, that's that one. Here's some more photos of the channels filling up a bit with even just a little bit of rain, so holding water, which is good. Moving on, here is a small detention pond I put in for stormwater management, rehydration, and fire mitigation. And this was just like a fun little basin I put in that was fed by the house you can see in the background. There's a pipe running off of their roof that catches rainwater that flows into here. So it fills up really quickly after even just a little bit of rain. I then used a lot of the overburden to build a little road through the woods, because the only access point other than this was a little walking path on the left. And so I just wanted more space and to get the machine through more easily. Plus I had a ton of fill to use. So I figured I'd just make a little road, which is always fun. And then, yeah, it filled up approximately September 26th. And I held water, then dropped around 2 feet approximately August 6th the next year. So it stored water for around 9 to 10 months of the year, which is great, because otherwise it would have just run off, exited the property faster than it needed to. It would have alleviated, it wouldn't have given them the fire protection that they were desiring. So I think that's cool. And like, this only took a few hours to do, and it's like that much more water just being held in the ground. So yeah, that was really cool to do. And then if you remember the little filter system before the pond, the image on the left is where that's located. And so the next project I'm going to show you is in the woods, just to the top of that property there. So the ponds, so on the left image, the ponds at the bottom right of that image, they overflow into the pond that I put in the next slides here. So we intercepted that ditch and drainage system, and instead put a basin in so it would hold that water. So yeah, when I started this, I dug a pretty deep test slice. It was about 7 feet till they hit bedrock. And there's a solid like 4 feet of impermeable clay to tie into. So it was really good material to work with. And so I knew there was like good potential to hold water on site here. Plus there was a lot of water moving through it already. Here's a worm test for the amount of clay that was in the soil. I actually got like a way longer and skinnier worm test after I did a few more, but this was one of them. So it was nice and high in clay. So we started with clearing the land. And then on the bottom right of this photo, you can see that the topsoil pile, I started a topsoil pile that just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So we had like a mountain of soil to use at the very end of the project. And we started with building a silt trap that the ditch from the other property runs into. So we intercepted it to catch any silt and contaminants before it hits the pond that we were installing. And yeah, Darcy was working with me on this and was amazing and just went full bore the whole time. So it was just him and I doing this project, and it was great. It was a lot of work, a lot of fun, super hot. And I think it turned out really well. So yeah. A lot of marking, just kind of roughing in approximate dimensions, getting measurements, stuff like that. Checking level on each end of where we were going to cut in the key for the pond. And the photo on the right is when we first started digging in the key. Some more marks and general dimensions of what we were going to install. So at this point, the key was open, and you can, like, we saw once we started digging in how much material was going to be lying around. There's just like so many piles of clay, and we separated to also like the top layers of soil and substrate. And we kept that separate from the stuff that was deeper down. That was more of the impermeable stuff because we wanted to keep like the higher density clay for the core of the key. But yeah, you can see here how tight the project site was, and just that there were like growing mounds of material to work around. And we tried our best to store things out of the way, but not where it was out of reach too much. And also we tried our best to not chase our tails and have to move material around more than we needed to, because that was an ongoing thing until we started using it up in the key. So where Darcy is on the top there, that was our mixing station. We kept a little platform there to mix, and that way we were close to the key itself, so we could take the excavator, swing it around, and dump stuff in. It was pretty efficient system, and it was a cool process to work with hydrating the clay to the right moisture content to compact properly, because you don't want it too wet and you don't want it too dry. And so it took us like a couple days to figure out the most efficient way to do it. So what we did is we would pile it on the top, and I'd have the excavator up there, and then Darcy would spray the clay because it was bone dry, and he'd basically spray it just the whole time as I would take the boom and just keep mixing it back and forth. And I'd pull it towards me and I'd push it out with the blade, and then I would do that again. So I'd end up eventually kind of rolling it like dough once it got enough moisture in it. And at first we were feeling it a lot just to make sure, but eventually we could tell just by the way it kneaded together, like very much like a dough in a sense, like that we are right at the right moisture content. And then we would double check with a hand texture to make sure that the visual was correct. So that was a cool process to learn and get the hang of. Here's the key. We had to do it in sections, and so part of it's built up, and then we connected it in the middle. And you can see on the right there, Darcy running the remote sheep's foot compactor. Here's another photo. Keys slowly coming up bit by bit, and there's also less material to have to work around at this point, so there was more room to move, which was nice, and it sped things up. Yeah, so that's where we are up to grade. And then this is at grade still. So now we started to apply topsoil around the dam and surrounding area, and also cut in the spillway. And so you can see on the right photo of the paint marks in the bottom left. So the one in the very bottom left is the height the water's entering the pond, and the one above that is the height of our spillway. And so there wasn't a lot of room for error. It was only like 4 to 6 inches difference of drop from coming into exiting the pond. So here's spillway being cut in, and also the spillway also exiting the property. And because it was such a tight space, we had to run it along the front of the dam. So we made sure to rock armor that really well to keep the dam from eroding. We had some mechanical issues, some hydraulic lines blew on the tractor. So, but thankfully it was a pretty easy fix and got it up and running again. And then after that, we went to the quarry and started collecting blast rock to rock armor the spillways with. And this was a very labor-intensive portion of the project. It was just truckload by truckload because there wasn't good access to the site. And so we had to just bring them in with my truck nearby, load up the tractor, and then drive them through the woods to get to the back here. And so this took a little while, a couple days, but we walked in each piece, very much like a puzzle, and then tied everything together with gravel. And so the spillway on the right is, I never really accounted for that in what I thought it would take to do this, but the homeowner let me know that a lot of water comes in from that side. So he just wanted to ensure that it wouldn't affect the downhill side of the dam. So we put 2 in that connects in the middle. And the spillway on the left is the one that I had designed for. So here's a photo of that all complete, and some pieces of flagstone for the homeowners to walk across and up onto the dam if they need to. Of course, some wildlife, which is always good. We had a lot of deer running through there all the time, watching us work, which was fun. And there's a before and after, which I think is a pretty cool transformation. So here it is later in the year, nice and full. And here are the spillways in action. And that was a really cool thing to see, because in the course we talk a lot about the importance of spillways, and there's videos of how to construct them properly, but also seeing them in operation. And it's not only when I saw the pond full that I was like, oh man, this is like the best thing ever, right? It felt so good. But then I realized how powerful water is seeing it flow, and how much force there is even in a small water body like this, and therefore how important it is to do your spillways properly, because it's all like a feedback loop. I'm going to check up on this again, but last time I did, it was running just as I wanted it to. But seeing that water flow through your system, I'm glad we took the time to do this properly, because it's like, if you don't, then I realized like how easily water could cut something out that you put in, or carve earth away and stuff like that. So, here's the silt trap. This actually is something I need to redo, because you can see on the left there, the water is overflowing the silt trap. And so I want to try to alleviate that. So I'm going to rock armor it a bit more, and possibly build up the land on each side, and also raise the height of my little dam there, because I don't want the water to spill over so quickly. Yeah, and then on the right, it continues through this little ditch and into the pond itself. And this is the spillway in action. So a lot of water. But yeah, it turned out great. I'm happy with it. And this is what I'm currently working on. This is a project up island against the ocean. And it is a landscape renovation that I've been talking to the clients about and done this little design for. And so it's mostly like an edible landscape with some hardscaping features. And then recently we talked about incorporating like roof runoff and creating channels in the lower section by the greenhouse to move water throughout the landscape. And so they're open to that idea, which is great. And so I'm just kind of in the final phases of putting this all together before I go to install it. So I'll stop sharing now. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Kurtis. I'm putting Kurtis's website into the chat here for anyone who wants to follow up with him. And I got to say, it's really awesome to see this process that took me years of trial and error to dial in. And you guys are just implementing it with your first projects, with the compaction roller, with sorting the materials properly. So that's really amazing to see. Just for you guys, I'm sure it still feels haphazard, especially that first one, but compare it to trying to dial in the whole process all at once, and it's really, really awesome to see. And next up, we're going across the pond to the UK with Matthew Bishop.
I'm following up with just a little run through of the 2 ponds that I built with another attendant of the intensive in Portugal last year. We built 2 ponds together pretty much right after we got out of the intensive, and we got way in over our heads, and we made some mistakes, and we're learning from those mistakes. So yeah, if you don't mind starting that slideshow, let's go through the process here. So that's Pete. Yeah. Okay. So the first project was very generous. Peter Wilkins was also at the intensive, and then when we got back to England, he offered for me to build a pond with him in his backyard. That's maybe, I don't know, a third of an acre of a backyard. So it was a tight space. And I think on the next slide, there should be the sort of view of his backyard and the sort of project site. Yeah, so here we go. Up sort of behind the cameraman is where his house is, and it's a sort of a steady slope downward. There, on the right side of that maple tree, there was a water line, so that was a limiting factor. And yeah, here's Pete digging the first test slice here. If you can see, and then in later photos, the soil here in that part of England is very, very heavy clay. So we were very blessed to encounter that, which made things easy and led us to take some shortcuts and some unconventional methods. Next slide. So here we are. We cleared off the pond site after doing some test slices and deciding where we wanted to go. You can see we've sort of laid out the key on the image in the left, and on the right side here, we don't have photos of us, going underground, but we didn't go very deep. We went maybe a meter deep, and then this is just us tracking around and clearing out the inside of the pond site. Yeah, I think that's our main shortcut. Was basically we didn't go very deep at all because we encountered really, really intense clay, and also we had a sort of 2-week time frame we wanted to do this in, and Pete, being the sort of client as well as the partner, made the call to just not spend tons of time going way down and packing clay that he thought was well compact enough. So yeah, next slide. Yeah, as you can see on the left, it was basically 100% clay. Like you could nearly use it as potter's clay. And then the lower we went, it turned into like a blue clay, like a very, very rich blue clay. So we felt that it was fine. And the image on the right, you can see us. We've done the full key kind of to ground level, and we started going up in the water level here. So yeah, you can carry on. You can go to the next. Yeah, there we go. Sorry. I think these are nearing the end here. So you can see we've built up. It's hard to exactly see, but we've come up several feet now. And we are, yeah, on the right here, we've really started to dig out the inside of the pond, and basically we decided to just kind of keep harvesting material from inside this pond, which then became like a very steep pit, because the sides were super stable, and that's what we decided we wanted to do. And then you can see on the back right side here, there's kind of like a shallow sloping zone for an in and out entry that's a little bit easier. We were building a few like sort of tiered steps, and I think he was planning on filling it with stones. Yeah, I think this is the last image I have for this site. Yeah, I haven't got any updates sort of post-winter to see how this pond has done. And I had to leave before we did the spillway, and I think Pete had completed a sort of mixed materials spillway, because he had quite a few materials on hand at his place. And it's basically just where that sort of white tarp is located in the left side of that image on the right. Yeah, so that was our first attempt with compactors and running our own machines, and it was a wild ride. It was pretty crazy. There was a ton of learning that we had just especially in this situation, like using this confined space, trying to maximize the pond size, and then really encountering the sort of like logistical challenges of where materials are stored, and how to move around in a site like this and sort of optimize movement of machines and placement of piles and keeping it safe for people to be moving around in. Hopefully I can get some updated images. I've been busy over the winter, so I haven't really reached out to Pete, but I have yet to see how the results ended up with it filling. So yeah, I'm excited to learn how that is. Pete also like put all the topsoil back and finished the overburden, and I think it should be growing a lot. And yeah, it was very fun. Okay, you can go to the oh yeah, and for anyone who's curious, that was in Weymouth, which is South England in Somerset or Dorset. Anyway, okay, yeah. So this is project 2. A few weeks after, I had a consultation with a guy that he's the landlord of some friends of ours, and he has a fairly large estate, and he had been getting very interested in ponds recently. He wanted to promote some newt habitat. So I spoke to him, and I decided that well, of course I would do it for free, since I hardly know anything about how to actually do this. So we decided that he would cover all the costs, and that Pete and I would give it another go. So this is project 2. This is in Taunton. Yeah. So yeah, and that's my son. But so if you go to the next slide here, you can see the beginning. So these were a couple of the sites that we had decided. This is actually the same site, but we went to 2 different spots and did test slices at 2 seeping springs. They have a ton of springs on this property, and basically the plan was to sort of just catch and hold that spring water, so that we had a nice fresh pool. But hopefully that was going to hold water longer in that space than previously it had, and then sort of have the wonderful results that we get from holding water here. So there's a little spring coming out right in this spot. So you can go to the next slide here. Also, yeah, first time in a 14-ton excavator. That was good fun. That was a lot of learning. Big machine. So yeah, be safe out there. The image on the left is the little spring that's naturally coming out of the water, or out of the land right here. So this is the project site. The image on the left, or sorry, on the right, is, I would say, a couple dozen meters above this spring, and it's a spring box that used to feed a bunch of the houses that are downhill from here. So we decided to do a little sort of scrape on the upper spring box here, as well as a bigger pond down below. So remember these images, or these are the 2 sites. And so the next slide, we've started progress on excavating. As you can see, the remnants of the little spring box on the right side. Water is already filling. On the left, we have a sump and a big pump that we're pumping out every day. And then you can see that we've started excavating. So here, the soil was very, very different, very permeable, and fairly homogeneous once you started getting down. The full reach of this excavator, there was no really clear sort of impermeable layer. There was one that was significantly higher in the strata, but that also wasn't totally uniform, because on the left side of that left image, you can see the soil color is quite different than the right, and the soil type really was interestingly different between the left and the right side of the spring. So on the right side in this image, there was much higher clay content, and then on the left it was very dry and very low clay content. So we decided to import clay because we just weren't positive that the clay content that we would like have enough, because the sort of calculations and stuff that we were going to do, that we did do around the sort of harvestable area, we were just really uncertain about how much clay we would really encounter and how usable that was. So yeah, you can carry on to the next slide. That's the delivery. And yeah, working with totally dry clay to get it to that moisture content that is desirable to build a quay with was definitely a challenge. And yeah, it took a while to figure out exactly how to best do it. It was very challenging. It was a lot of splashing water around, and yeah, it's a lot of trial and error. This project also, we gave ourselves 2 weeks to accomplish, and more if we needed it. But basically, we decided that we would try to do what we could in 2 weeks. And so there was some reasons for doing that. But I definitely have learned that you want to give yourself a lot of time, and do not bite off more than you can chew. Yeah. Okay. So this sump here, it had a very high flow rate quite high. So this would fill pretty much every night, and every day we would get it bigger, and it would just keep filling. I think part of that was probably just that we created a sort of low pressure zone, so there was an unusually high amount of water that was flowing in for those first few days of exposing this. But as you can see below the pump, we've cleared off that zone, and I think in the next photo you can see us digging down and putting in our key. Oh no. Anyway, so basically, where you can see the excavator bucket is in this image on the right is where we placed the key. We wrapped it all the way around here, and yeah, again we didn't go low enough. It was yeah, it was a poor decision. I think basically we went to a depth, and then we just kept excavating, and we sort of undercut and broke through the impermeable layer, or the less permeable layer that was underneath the dam here. But as you can see on the left, the clay content is quite high in here. That is the sort of the wall between our sump and the excavation of the pond. So we did end up really mixing the imported clay with a lot of this material, and then we were able to get quite a bit higher in the quay to make it even higher. And I think that's kind of where we started getting a bit greedy, just because there was really good material that we had found, and we wanted to make the pond bigger because we had suddenly a lot of material. So that was also a lesson to learn. But yeah, okay. So you can go to the next slide there. Yeah, so this is just an image of sort of throwing over the topsoil after doing a bunch of compacting on the right, you can see that the pond has filled substantially after just a couple of days of, pulling the pump out and excavating the sump area. And then on the right side of that right image, you can see where the little scrape is, and I think there's some more images of it coming up, but that's the spot right there. So it's a good overview of the site there. Okay. This is my first time I've built a spillway, and it was super satisfying work. It was a full day, but we had actually managed to harvest all of these stones from the soil. So that was the one bonus that we were quite excited about, is that we were able to sort through the soil and found all of this wonderful rock that's kind of the optimal sort of stone to use for this area, and such a gradation of stone sizes too. So it was pretty awesome. Cutting the spillway was definitely an interesting challenge, but I ended up being able to get it pretty darn close to level. So that was very, very satisfying. Okay, you can go to the next slide there. So yeah, that's on the left there, a couple days later. And on the right, you can see this scrape here. You can see I built a little sort of level sill spillway on the far side of that scrape, and we did build a little quay on the low side. But again, we just we got very, very greedy and decided to go deeper than the land would allow, but we were very late to realize that. So you can go to the next slide. This is still a few days after. I'm just finishing the spillway here. You can see, and the water level hasn't really changed, but at this point, we're both just hoping that it's the land soaking up all the water, and that it will rise. And then you can see a better view a little bit of our helter-skelter quay on the little scrape there. And also on the image in the left, you can see on the right side of the pond the level sill very lightly. You can see that, but anyway, that's where the spillway is on that right side. Okay. So yeah, this is a couple weeks later. And as you can see, the pond level hasn't changed. And I went and took a peek at the bottom because the landowner said that there was some water coming out. And so my spillway isn't working at all. It's not engaged, and there's some water coming out underneath. So that's basically where I had to leave it for the season. I had to go back to Canada and get my visa application sorted out, and after that, it was really kind of impossible to come back and do the required maintenance and repairs that were needed to get this to be the sort of sexy looking pond that it was envisioned to be. So is there a next slide, or is that it? Yeah. So basically, just more images of it not being full, and of water definitely escaping from underneath. So yeah, this summer, once things dry out, I will be going back and doing the necessary repairs to get this thing sealed up. I've spoken to Zach several times about how to do the repairs, and so when I go back, hopefully I can achieve those goals. Zach has been extremely helpful and very willing to work with me in this situation here. So I'm definitely an amateur. I definitely learned a lot. I thought I knew a lot, but there is so much to learn always. Yeah. So it's been an adventure. I'm looking forward to doing more successful work of this nature, and yeah, looking forward to the future. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Matthew. And I think it's a really important part to share. So really appreciate your transparency and openness. And because, the reality is this stuff's not easy, and it takes some real time on task to really get comfortable with. And I think that's one of the big things that for me was always so important from the very beginning is there's so many trainings or classes or university where, show up to the class and then good luck, see you later. I hope you can figure this out. And you imagine with something like that, the first hiccup you encounter, you're like, oh my gosh, am I really cut out for this? But the reality is everyone has hiccups in the first things. And that's the way you learn. It's the best way to learn. You learn so much by doing. And so it's really important to have the people around you to help you through that process and say, you're on the right track. Here's the things to do different. Here's the things to keep an eye out for. I think in many ways, what makes someone like Sepp Holzer really successful is all of the mistakes that he made over his time. And so because he has all the information from those mistakes, he can share that with me and others and everyone else and say, well, don't do it too dry, don't do it too wet, all of these different variables. It's actually the mistakes that have a lot of value. And there's a German saying that I really like, that those who make mistakes learn, those who make a lot of mistakes learn a lot, those who don't make mistakes get promoted. And I think that just kind of speaks to the reality of the world we're living in right now. We'll get to some questions here in one moment. I just want to share with you guys just how grateful I am for you guys. We started Water Stories with this vision of taking all of these stories of heroes around the world and making a bunch of heroes all around the world. And you guys are all doing a really great job of that, because we have so much power to work with water and nature and our environment. This is one of my very favorite quotes. Knowing is not enough, we must apply. Willing is not enough, we must do. And you guys have all done a really excellent job of that. And that's why all these amazing projects are coming your way. This is so inspired by the work of Sepp Holzer. We have an amazing film about him on Water Stories that you can learn more. Flowing Rivers in India, the work of Rajendra Singh that Tim was alluding to, again, films on that. And we're really all centered around just helping people, empowering people to do these kinds of things on their landscape. You'll be amazed once you start how quickly things really start to go. And so, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is the last week to register for the course. Once it starts, it won't open again until 2027 now. And we really just do have so much direct agency over the world that we're living in. And so encourage all of you guys to check out Water Stories, learn from what we have online, learn from these excellent speakers that we had today. I'm also going to put a link in the chat here to the course, as well as a special discount coupon all of you guys joining here are welcome to use if you want to join the course this year. And whether you join the course or not, there's so much content on Water Stories to learn from, amazing people to connect with. There's really so many ways to get started. You really just gotta get started and see how it goes and see where the path leads. I want to respect our presenters' time, so I think we'll just do a couple of questions and then wrap up. But 2 questions I saw for you, Gerhard. One was, have you seen rain yet on these swale projects that you recently implemented? And if so, how did they perform?
Yes, I have seen rain, not heavy rain. So I'm still waiting for this heavy early summers, late spring rains. Because we built them in December. The biggest project was built in December. The other one just 2 weeks ago. So they are not green yet. And until they are green, there is, of course, a bit of a danger that the water overflowing creates some kind of erosion. The December one has seen like 20 liters of rain, which usually would lead to an overflow of the system, according to my calculations at least. It didn't overflow. Everything infiltrated. There was one funny situation where there was like a mole that was having his tunnel system right beneath the swale that we did. And he came out and put his heap right into the dig. And when it started raining, the water entered his system and spilled out in the lower end. So I hope it didn't drown. It didn't create any damage, but we could see a mole and already do something. We put some clay into it, and it's fine again. So, but there are systems that are 3 or 4 years old, like the one where I showed the pictures in the beginning, and they are working. There's also a video on the homepage of Humus Plus. It's in German, but you can see also that how people share their experience, that they don't create mud floods anymore in the how happy they are. So where I showed this picture of the green swale, this field actually was creating mud floods and doesn't do with them anymore.
Oh, very cool. And I saw some very similar stuff in Slovakia from the New Water Paradigm team. We'll actually be releasing a film hopefully next week about these folks. But these were systems now many decades old, implemented in agricultural settings, and had worked very well at alleviating floods downstream. So I think it's definitely a technique that has a lot of historical evidence of being quite effective.
I read from Mark Shepard. Maybe I would like to drop this name here. Water for Any Farm. For me, he was a really big inspiration. Good read.
And there's some comments asking you to please do write the book about bureaucracy or municipal collaboration, Gerhard. And I think especially with the story of, the kids' workshop and their fun project changing the perspective of local officials, that's a really powerful and impactful story that can be replicated all around the world.
Yeah.
Kurtis, Martha is asking, your designs are beautiful and thoughtful. What software do you use for illustrating your plans?
Thank you for one. I use Adobe Illustrator. And so I learned that process through United Designers, which is a global collective of digital permaculture designers and main teachers, Dan Halsey, and then also Urushka Kierkegaard. So they're great people, but they were essential in learning like the technical components of design, and also to like have a nice looking product which can also sell projects as well. It's like I mentioned, it's not always necessary in terms of doing water body installation, but ultimately I just like to combine the two, because sometimes people want a drawing and I like to leverage having a nice looking design that I then ground truth on the land from what we learned in the core course to kind of marry those two together. So it's like you have your design and then you have what you're actually seeing on the ground and then what's underground, and then you can make the best decisions to move forward that way. But it's Adobe Illustrator, which is also like a powerhouse of potential, and you can basically do almost anything in that, which is awesome.
Awesome. And I just shared Kurtis's website again in the chat here. I'm going to share Gerhard's now. And a question for you guys. I have my own thoughts as well, but I'll let you answer first. I'm curious how much overlap there is with permaculture design courses in the Water Stories core course.
Do you want to go, Gerhard?
Well, I can try because my answer is short. I haven't never done a 3BC, so I don't have a clue how there is an overlap. But I'm starting to become curious about permaculture design. Actually, I love it to have it this way about. This is something that I like to point out. I meet a lot of people that are trained in permaculture, and then the focus gets very narrow on the solutions that permaculture offers, and it's a bit far away from the needs maybe others have sometimes. Yeah. So I'm maybe starting a permaculture design course. So I'm not sure, but it's for me, it's about the all the connections of the plants actually. That this is the part that I miss. The water part is well.
Kurtis, do you
yeah, I think like there is overlap. I guess it depends on your teacher overall and how in depth PDC could or can be. And I find it's like good at looking at sort of a mainframe, kind of like Gerhard's saying, like looking at all the possible connected pieces through a design system. And I feel like the Water Stories course, it just goes a step beyond that because there's so much more in person. And like that was one of the biggest things that stood out to me. So it's certainly utilized as like assessment skills you'd learn in a PDC, but it's just like, especially for building water bodies, you know, they're big, very nuanced projects that sort of, they're also very emergent. So as you start, they reveal the next step as you continue through the process. And I feel it's like the core course just helped dive in deeper into like the nitty gritty of actual assessment and implementation. Yeah, and a lot of it too, I feel like you know, doing more like in-depth land assessment also simplifies the overarching process that permaculture can. Once again, it depends how you look at it, but it can overcomplicate things. Potentially, depends how you look at it, right? Like it's kind of like Gerhard's saying, it's you don't want to get lost in just having tools that you superimpose on any landscape. It's better to tune in and also just use intuition and logic to a certain extent. And that's what's nice about just doing more like in-person assessments, because then you can actually use your senses to see what's happening and what you think could happen, and then further do assessment from there in terms of if you're going to build a water body, checking what soils you're working with and stuff like that. So certainly crossover, and definitely could put the two together to, you know, just build up your skill set for sure.
I would love to add something if it's possible. I came across last year. I came across like live also with Darren Doherty, and then like very much how he approaches design. So maybe also to add this, it doesn't have permaculture. Like he incorporates for me the really good permaculture plus holistic management plus water plus farming. If you are in the farming side, which I'm very, very much, I think it's also good to have an eye on what we do.
And this is a topic I could go into great detail about, but I'd say just very shortly, I think permaculture is kind of a movement founded in theory that they've then been trying to put practice to. Whereas like SEP's approach is really founded in practice and theory as much as is required or needed. But if the practice works, you don't really even need the theory. So I think they're a pretty different approach in a lot of ways. And I see a lot of PDCs where people leave the PDC kind of as lost as they were when they began, but with a lot of jargon terms, and very excited about a lot of things, but not a lot of practical skills to do any of those things. So we see a lot of people do a PDC and then never really do anything with it or create a project. Whereas we tried to really make our course where if you're going through it, you have to do projects, you have to gain experience, because that's the only way you learn any of these things. You really can't learn them in the classroom. You learn them in the field. You can get guidance in the classroom, but it's the firsthand experience in the field that's what actually delivers some kind of change or impact on that landscape. So in many ways, I was kind of trying to create the anti-PDC when I created the Water Stories core course, taking all my frustrations from the PDCs that I'd been a part of or seen. And the reality is, for example, the vast majority of PDCs out there are being taught by someone who's never built a pond, likely never even implemented a big project. They've just read the book and are parroting the book. And I do also want to say that there's a huge variability in PDCs. I've taken PDCs like Ben Fawkes that are very skill-based, on the land-based, really great. I think there are really great PDC teachers out there, but I'd say for every one really good PDC, you can probably find 5 to 10 that are pretty suboptimal, taught by people without a lot of firsthand experience. And so you really want to, I think, if you're going to take a PDC, find the projects that the teacher has done themselves. Not projects that they've made videos of, but projects that they themselves have done. And those are the people you really want to learn from. And there are a lot of those people out there within permaculture as well. I don't mean to degrade it at all, but there's just a lot more variability within a PDC and what you might walk away from that experience from. And then another part that I think really sets our stuff aside is I also saw so many times people do the PDC and then it's good luck, see you later, or they get their permaculture design and it's good luck, see you later. And so there's not a lot of long-term guidance in that process. And that's one thing that from the very start, some people need years still getting some support, some guidance to really feel comfortable doing these things. And so how do we create that kind of infrastructure to allow for that to happen, to allow for people's long-term growth, to give them support through the process? And then for our practitioners, people like these folks who are able to actually deliver the project rather than just the conceptual design. And I think that's a really important piece of being a good designer as well. So we are very long in the tooth for this webinar. I think it's a good time for some closing thoughts from you guys, if you'd like to share any, and for us to wrap up for the day.
Yeah, for sure. I just want to say thank you. Yeah, thanks for hosting this and having us on, and to all of the presenters today and everyone watching too. Thanks for your curiosity and wanting to learn more and listening. And yeah, hopefully it was helpful and you got some useful info out of it all. So thanks. Yeah, and feel free to reach out.
Yeah, looking forward. I think I said everything already. I'm happy that I was here again with you folks. I love this Water Stories bubble. From time to time I get contacted by people. How was the core course and how is it for you? How did you get away with it? Like, this is mostly the question. and you can ask me. So if there is a question, reach out. I'm open for exchange, and also I'm open for cooperation. So sometimes I reach a point where I'm looking out for people that could do something from like this way around. And if you like, contact.
Awesome. Thank you both so much for sharing your stories. They were super inspiring, and I just love seeing all the connections getting made. And, it's just awesome to see, like Gerhard, in your case, the webinar last time. Now you're presenting the projects that you got from that webinar. And I think that's the big take home for me, for everyone attending, is getting started is the hardest part. Once you get started and you have a little bit of momentum, the next steps just become obvious. The doors open in front of you. One project leads to the next. And so don't wait to get started. Just go out there in that rainstorm, build that little check dam, create that model, that first water body. Nothing is ever going to happen until you get started. And so there's no reason to put off that process.